The War with Grandpa by Robert Kimmel Smith. Chapter 15. It takes two sides to fight a war. Well, it was a lot of fear and worry over nothing, because Grandpa didn't say anything or do anything about my note. Not the next day, anyway, or the day after that. I didn't know what to do. Here I had declared war and written a note, and my enemy totally ignored the whole thing. It looked like it was going to be the shortest war in history. That day and the one after, I followed Grandpa around and gave him plenty of chances to talk to me when nobody else was around. I even sat through a whole afternoon with him while he watched these stupid soap operas on TV. Later, I went to the candy store with him when he wanted to buy some cigars. It took forever to walk 2 blocks because Grandpa just limped along so slowly. "Is there anything you want to say to me?" I asked him on the way back. He grinned at me. "Only that I like your company, Petey. You are very easy to be with." "Isn't there something you read lately you want to talk about?" I asked. "Like a note," I almost said. "Just the newspaper," he said. "And there's so much bad news in it, I try not to pay too much attention." I was learning something about Grandpa. He was one of the world's best ignorers. And my fight to get my room back looked like it would never even get started. Chapter 16. The First Strategy Conference. "You are so stupid, it's amazing you can live," Billy was saying. We were at his house, playing his game, Stratomatic Baseball. Steve and I had one team, Billy had the other. Naturally, Billy always fixed it so that he had Babe Ruth and Ty Cobb on his team. Naturally, Billy always seemed to win. "You don't start a war with a note," Billy said. "You think the Japanese sent a note before they attacked Pearl Harbor? 'Dear United States, pardon us, we are going to sink all your ships. Sorry.'" "Are you sure your grandfather got the note?" Steve asked. "Yes, he couldn't miss it. It was right on his pillow." "Maybe it fell out when he took the bedspread off," Steve said. "Then where would it go?" I said. "On the floor? Out the window? It was a big piece of paper. It didn't just fly away." "You have to attack," Billy said. "Not just write a polite note. Blam! Drop a bomb. Wham! Hit him with a rocket." "I am not going to bomb my grandpa," I said. "Then what are you going to do?" Steve said in his slow and careful way. His eyes seemed to be laughing at me as he waited for me to answer. I'll do something," I said. "Some war," Billy said. Meanwhile, he threw the dice, and his all-time all-star team scored 2 more runs on a double play by Hannes Wagner. "It's time you got started fighting." All of a sudden, something clicked in my head. Before I knew it, I began to laugh. Billy and Steve looked at me as if I'd gone nuts. "Thanks, Billy," I said. "Thanks a lot. Time I got started, all right. Time, sure enough." And then I told them what I was going to do. Chapter 17. Night Attack. I really figured that I wouldn't be able to sleep at all that night, but I was wrong. I set my AM/FM digital clock radio for 2 o'clock in the morning before I clicked off my reading lamp. I guess I must have tossed and turned for a while, thinking of what I was going to do and being nervous about it. But when the radio came on, playing a Beatles song, I was fast asleep. I put the light on, shut off the radio, and looked at the note I had prepared one more time. This is what it said. "People who steal other people's rooms should not sleep well at night. Surrender my room and the war will be over. The Secret Warrior." I took my pocket flashlight, put on my slippers, and went out into the hallway. Down the stairs to the 2nd floor I sneaked, slow and careful, trying not to make any noise. The house was so quiet, it was weird. At the bottom of the stairs I paused for a moment. My heart was beating, thump-a-thump, very loud in my chest. To tell you the truth, I felt uncertain about what I was about to do to Grandpa. But to get back what was mine, I had to fight. "All's fair in love and war," somebody said. I hoped he wasn't the same guy who said, "Respect your elders." I sneaked down the hallway like a thief in the night, tiptoeing past my parents' closed bedroom door, and then Jennifer's. Outside of my old room, I stepped around the floorboard that always creaked so loud. Then I turned the doorknob as slowly as I could, opened the door, and went into the room. Even in the dark, I could see that Grandpa was lying on his back under the covers, fast asleep. He was breathing slow and easy, making a little whistling noise that ended in a snore. One of his feet poked out of the covers at the bottom of the bed. I walked very carefully around the floorboards I knew creaked and went to the dresser. Here was where I needed my pocket flash. I covered it with one hand and made sure the light went only on the little electric clock on top of the dresser. This was the nasty part. I took the little clock and turned the alarm arrow so it pointed at 3 o'clock. I have to tell you that when the arrow went past 2 o'clock, it made such a loud click, I almost jumped a foot in the air. Be brave, secret warrior, I told myself. Then I pulled out the alarm button on the back of the clock, set down my note smack on top of the dresser, where even a blind man could see it, and got myself out of the room in a hurry. Upstairs, I jumped into bed, turned out the light, and settled under the covers to see what was going to happen. In less than an hour, that alarm clock was going to go off, and Grandpa would be awakened in the middle of the night. Be still, my heart. Chapter 18. The First Peace Conference. You know I couldn't fall asleep. It was kind of like waiting for a bomb to go off. I watched the seconds and minutes flip down on my digital clock radio. At 2:58 on my clock, I heard the alarm go off in Grandpa's room downstairs. It sounded like an angry bee buzzing, and it kept buzzing for about a minute. Then I heard Grandpa get out of bed, and the alarm stopped. Almost holding my breath, I waited. Now Grandpa would find the note. Then what would he do? Ignore me again? I heard the sound of Grandpa's door opening. Was he coming up here? Yes! Now I could hear the creaking of the wooden stairs as his slippered feet came slow and limping upstairs. I got down under the covers and pretended to be asleep. My door opened. I heard Grandpa come across and stand next to my bed. Pete? He whispered. I kind of groaned a little like I was asleep and having a dream. Grandpa sat down on the edge of the bed. I felt his hand on my shoulder, shaking me gently. Pete, come on, boy. I know you're not sleeping. What? I said, like I was just coming awake. Grandpa? Is that you? Grandpa reached over and snapped on my reading lamp. I shielded my eyes against the sudden glare. Grandpa's white hair was all mussed, and he looked very angry. Do you know what time it is? He asked. Nighttime? The middle of the night, he said. Mr. Secret Warrior. It's not funny, Pete. I don't like someone playing tricks on me this way, especially not my own grandson. It's not a trick, I said. It's a war. Grandpa shook his head. Stuff and nonsense is what it is. You don't go to war against kin. You have to have an enemy to have a war, and I'm certainly not your enemy. You got my declaration of war, I said. Why didn't you say anything about it? I was kind of thinking it was a joke, Grandpa said. It's no joke, I said. You took something of mine and I want it back. I didn't take anything, Grandpa said. Your parents gave me your room, Pete. You've still got it, haven't you? I said. A funny look crossed Grandpa's face. By God, he said, you got a look on your face just like your mother when she was a kid. I hope you're not as stubborn as she was. She was a holy terror when she didn't get her way. I'm more stubborn, I said, especially when I'm right. Grandpa sighed and stared at me for a minute. Then he slowly got back to his feet. Go back to sleep, he said. We'll talk about this tomorrow, which is almost here. He walked to the door. Grandpa, I called after him, and he stopped in the doorway. I love you, I said, which made him smile. But the war is still on.